Welcome to the Casual Author Podcast. I'm Dan, sci-fi and fantasy author. Like you, I've got a lot on my plate. What with many children, a full-time job, a homestead, and loads of other responsibilities. I'm here to bring you inspiration, positivity, and community around having a busy life and still wanting to chase that author dream, even if you have to take a casual approach. For more information about the podcast, me, or my books, head to thecasualauthor.com. Let's get started. Hey there, it's Dan Kenner with episode number 153 of The Casual Author. Today is Friday, February 21st, 2025, as I record this. And today we're talking to Urmi Hossain about lifelong learning. We dive into why lifelong learning is an important objective for her, how she's written many guides and continues to write guides for, the assistance of helping people with their lifelong learning. And we talk a lot about her book, which is about her experience growing up from Bangladesh in France and what that's like kind of being different and not fitting in with people there. So I think you'll want to stick around for that conversation. You're going to really enjoy it. Just a lot of insights on lifelong learning and some tips and tricks for people who might be at the beginning of their authoring stage. So yeah, definitely a lot to learn there. So in terms of personal life, homestead updates, as well as author updates, I feel like week to week, it doesn't seem like lots is changing, but I know time is moving so fast, so changes are there. First and foremost, from the family perspective, I think the biggest challenge that I'm experiencing this week is when you have 7 children, there are very few nights where I'm not woken up in the middle of the night. Now, you may be listening and thinking that's atypical for men. Men usually sleep through the night, leave the wives to do all the work. In our family, it's opposite. And this is actually a predetermined decision by our family. So my wife needs 8 to 9 hours of sleep. She's not even getting that just because of the cow, which is a different conversation. But so from the beginning, since we've had kids, I've always been the night duty person. I can usually live okay off of 5 to 6 hours of sleep. So the kids know to come to me when they need something. So recently, there's just been a lot going on with some of our kids are having some concerns with insomnia. The baby has been waking up. We always get up at 3 with him to feed him. That's just par for the course of the whole first year. Our baby strangely will sleep through the night. It's like a blessing and a curse, right? When they sleep through the night, then there's a problem with milk supply with my wife because, the night feeding is what really helps keep the supply up. So we set alarms. I wake up at 3, get the baby changed, wake them up, go get my wife, wake her up and everything. So, in any case, yeah, I got woken up 4 times last night and I think 5 times the night before. So there's like periodically throughout the night. So my sleep has been wild, not great for the past week, but it is what it is. It's kind of just we know we were getting into it with kids and I deal with it pretty well. I don't have mood problems. Sometimes I have focus and attention issues, but I just try and get more sleep the next night. So anyway, kind of bleeding into homestead, I mentioned the cow thing. The one thing that we did not account for when getting a cow is milking twice a day provides a significant amount of time consumption. That's a really weird way to say that. It consumes a lot of time. There's maybe a better way to say that. Now, we've milked twice a day before when we've had 5 goats. There was a time where maybe a month or two where we had to milk in the morning and the afternoon. The difference with those is there are fewer dishes. It was less of an ordeal because the thing with a cow is not only is she bigger and produces more milk, but she is messier. So, if you don't know anything, obviously, goat poop and cow poop are two different things. This is strange to be talking about this on a podcast, but it's just the reality of the situation. Goat poop is pellets, and it doesn't get everywhere, right? It just kind of mixes in with the rocks. It breaks down pretty quickly. Cow poop is very different. It's messy, and for some reason, cows do this in the winter. It's warm to lay in their poop. So what they'll do is they'll set it and then they'll lay in it to stay warm. Now she has a house. There's not a heater in there. She's got plenty of fur. I don't think there's a cold issue, but every once in a while she will just be messy. And so you have to do extensive cleaning before you can actually get to the milking because you don't want that in your milk. So lots and lots of cleaning and it takes so much time, upwards of 30 minutes to get everything clean. It's not always that long, but so you can imagine twice a day, milking, cleaning, doing all that fun stuff. We don't finish milking and dishes until probably about 9:30 p.m. at night every day, 9 to 9:30. And then at that point, you have to go to bed. Yeah, because I like to get up at 5 to do author things, but we don't usually. We're not very disciplined. So anyway, that's kind of an idea of what it looks like on the homestead. There's challenges with it. I think we've come to terms with what it's like, but we're starting to reach burnout. So hopefully in the next few weeks or month, we can pare down to once per day, get rid of that night milking, and that will help a lot. That is going to be dependent on her and her health because she's had recent mastitis challenges. You don't want to wean, or excuse me, not wean, don't want to go down to one milking too quickly because then it could cause some engorgement and issues. There's all sorts of things to consider with that. So in any case, it's pretty crazy. I'm pausing to reflect on what happened this last week. We are incapable of taking things slow, even in the midst of overwhelm. We think about things practically and logically with respect to our homestead, and it just keeps growing just by nature of practicality. And as an example, since we've had the cow 6, 7 months, we've had to deal with so much milk, and there's only so much you can do: cheese making, butter making, ice cream making, those things. So we've actually been trading with another family, which is it's very common, right? We're trading some milk, they're giving us some hay services, certain things. So we're not exchanging money. It's just like one thing for another. And they got their own cows. They're not in milk yet, but they soon will be, which means we will be responsible solely for all of the milk. And when we look at it, the best way to deal with over milk, aside from like pouring it down and wasting it, which we don't want to do, is either selling it, which we have to get like licensed, and we don't really want to have to deal with that, all that trouble, or get pigs. So we're probably getting kit pigs. There's nothing in the near future, but probably before she has another calf later this year, we will most likely have some pigs. Interestingly enough, this is a kind of random fun fact for you from a homestead perspective and just like nutrition perspective. The best way to fatten up pigs is to feed them skim milk. So think about that. It's kind of interesting. The media and news will tell you that skim milk is the best for you because it's low fat, but that's ironically what you give to pigs to fatten them up faster. So don't drink skim milk. I mean, do what you want, but if it's used to fatten up pigs, you can imagine what it does to a human body. Regardless, yeah, the pigs will get all of the extra milk and they'll get nice and fat, and then they'll become food. So that's the plan. We already have some lined up. There are these gorgeous black pigs with these floppy ears. They look really funny. If we end up getting pigs, we'll make sure to post pictures of them. But yeah, that's currently the plan. And then there is a decent chance we'll also be getting turkeys. We don't eat turkeys very often throughout the year, just pretty much for Thanksgiving. But my wife is like, why do we buy it? Right? Let's go for all the clean meat we can. And so if we get pigs, we have beef that we're growing up right now, and we just bought meat chickens, bought online, we ordered them ahead of time. They'll come as baby chicks and we'll grow them up. And yeah, so it's a whole operation. There's not much more to say other than we're insane, but our kids are getting older. They're starting to be more helpful. We're starting to feel less of that burden as our oldest two boys are stepping up to the plate and really enjoying it. They like it, right? We don't force them to, though I would if I had to. No, they like it. They like going out and doing chores. They like being with the animals and kind of learning the care of them. So very, very grateful for them and their willingness to help. But in terms of author news, I just got copy edits back for Demon Blooded. Always overwhelming, right? To see the huge list of things to go through, just lots of punctuation things. I think there might be some typo things here and there that the first editor missed, which is fine. It's pretty common. If my work is pretty messy, which sometimes it is, it's not unusual to have two editors have to catch everything. I need to go through all those edits, so that's what I'll be doing the next probably 5 to 7 days, and then getting it ready for ARCs. So just for context, March 24th, a little more than a month is the published date for Demon Blooded. So right around the corner. I have a lot of work cut out for me, but I think once I get it all done and formatted once more for ARCs, then I'll be in a good place. So Fairy Blooded, the fourth book, is up at about 98,000 words now, so coming very, very close to the end. I actually think this book might end up being shorter than the other ones, so which is unusual for me. It's a good thing. It's a good unusual, but the first three that I've written for this series have all ended up at about 110. We did cut down to about 104. That's where we ended up. But this one might end up at 104. So with cut downs, it might even be less than 100,000. We'll see. I can't really plan on what happens with my pantsing brain and the kind of final few scenes. But yeah, I think I'm getting pretty close to the end, which is great. I love finishing energy. Then on to the next one. It really is the way we need to go. Other than that, yeah, really getting back into the swing of writing nearly every day. I'm feeling good about the story and starting to think about what's next. I only have two more books of the Hidden Heritage series, which might sound like a lot, but to me, it's not. I've written the first four books, nearly finished the fourth book, so I really need to be considering what's next. I've already written the first book of another four-book series. Kind of overwhelming. That's the Etcher's Plight. It's just been sitting there for the past year and a half. I need to start editing that and potentially writing the second book. So kind of bouncing back and forth between and YA and the epic fantasy. So the one thing, this is kind of an author update, but also kind of a family update. My son, he's 6 years old. He's still learning to read today. He's doing pretty well, but he's been so excited to write a book. And he said, "Hey, Dad, can you help me write this book?" Of course, I said, "Yes, I'd love to help you." So we're slowly working on this middle grade book. We are at about, I want to say 4,000 words on this middle grade book. It's going to be pretty short. I think a lot of middle grade books can end up anywhere from 10 to 25,000 words. I don't know where it's going to end up, but he's having a blast. Once a week we sit down and he gives me his thoughts, tells me where he thinks he wants the story to go, and I just bring it to life in words. And yeah, so no updates in terms of when that's going to come out. I do fully intend on publishing it with him as like a co-author. So any royalties that are received through the sale of that book will go to him, or at least most of it. Some will go to me in the author business. But yeah, I figure it will be fun to have a book with his name on it, right? I can do the cover for it. We'll get it all edited and formatted, and then, he can have a book as a 6-year-old, and I think that'll be really fun for him. So, and, there may be more stories. My other two boys have expressed interest in writing a book, and I've told them, in as much as, we can make time for it, I'm happy to help you. So, a little bit of an update there. I don't anticipate anything will come of it soon, but just a fun little update. I believe that's everything in terms of updates this week. As a reminder, if you want to support the show or you're interested in, telling me where you're listening from, what you like about the show, comment on the show notes. Let me know on the YouTube channel where you're listening, what you like or what you learned. And if there's anything you want to learn more about, please let me know. Of course, there's the Patreon, dankenner.com/the casual. Whoa, that is the wrong URL. Patreon.com/the casual author. Of course, you can get the free guide, How to Have the Most Stellar Writing Session Possible. You can get that either at Patreon or just at thecasualauthor.com. You can get that free there. So thanks again for listening, and we'll go ahead and shift over to the interview portion of the podcast. How are you doing, Urmi?
I'm doing good, and you?
Doing very, very well. I'm excited to talk to you. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
So, how long have you been writing and publishing books?
It started in 2020 or 2021. It started with my blog, and I used that as a way to express myself, to get a message out, and to basically work on my writing skills, to later move on actually writing for organizations, to self-publishing my first book. And now I don't have any more a blog, but I do write for other organizations. Maybe it's like a one-time project, where maybe, they're looking for a specific theme or someone to write about a specific thing. And that's how I use my writing skill. I just try to write for these organizations.
Very cool. So is that what you always wanted to do, was kind of set up contract writing for organizations, or did that just happen as a result of
No,
you starting with the blog?
it's just happened. I had no interest, I would say. I had no idea also. I think when I started with my blog, the goal was just to have it was just to have my blog and writing my blog. But then I saw that there was a little bit of declining. Like there is a blog they don't get across to people as much as they would
Mm,
do, let's say, with a video or maybe with a podcast. But then, I still enjoyed the process of writing. So I was like, maybe I don't have to like write, in my own blog. I can do it for other organizations. But usually I do it as a way to, heal, meaning that I feel like when you're writing, you're healing yourself and you are also like concentrated and you're present in during the writing process. So that's why I do this thing where if I see that there is an organization that I'm following and for this month they want to talk about, I don't know, how do you feel about winter? And I just go and write down how I feel about the winter. So it's sort of like a journaling, but
yeah.
you're doing journaling like more like on a digital way. So
Interesting. I feel like blogs were really popular way back in the late 2000s, 2008, 2009. A lot of people really got into blogs and they became very popular. But I think as we've moved kind of towards audio, video, I think, a lot of the blog readers kind of stayed in their space. They continue reading the blogs, but new blogs that pop up might not find as much kind of grounded popularity as back then. Are you finding that as well?
Yeah, I feel the same as well. And I was actually talking about this with a friend. He has a YouTube channel, and I first talked to him and I said, "Oh, look, I have a blog, and I saw that people are able to monetize their blog, and I'm like, this is not working with me." And then he was telling me that when you're blogging is much harder. It's much harder
Mm,
because people, like you said, tend to like watch stuff, listen to things, especially because we don't have time. People don't have time to read, especially when it comes to reading a blog. Like if you're walking, you're not walking and reading. You're like walking and listening
right.
to something, even though there are people who are actually walking and reading.
For
But
better,
if you
for
want
worse.
to But if you want to make your life easier, I think like there are certain methods that come across much faster, like listening or, watching stuff. So I think the blogging is just, for some people work, whereas I think they're just declining.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's definitely true. And, trying to change with the times for, like I said, for better or for worse, things are changing. People are moving more towards these platforms. But despite that, you've written a number of books. It looks like four now have been published. Is that right? Or am I missing some?
So I published one book, and the other stuff that I have are more like guides. They're like
Oh, nice.
ebook, like maybe like 5 pages, 10 pages, but it's like sort of like a guide.
Very cool.
It's not an actual book.
Very cool. Yeah, and I think that's awesome. The guides are very important, particularly when they're focused on specific topics that are important. But
Yeah,
let's see. So your book is Discovering Your Identity, right?
yeah,
That's the book
yeah.
you published, A Rebirth from Interracial Struggle. So it sounds like it's almost like a memoir. Is that
It
where
it
the
is.
book came
It
from?
is. It is a memoir. I talk about my life as a third culture kid. I talk about how it was for me to be Bengali Italian, because I was born and raised in Italy. My parents are from Bangladesh, and I struggle a lot in fitting in. I always felt like I was a bit misplaced no matter what I was,
Interesting.
because I had a lot of Italian people around me, but I was always super, super self-conscious that I did not look like them,
Mm,
that we did not follow the same tradition, the same culture. And then when I was among the Bengali community, I also felt the same way because even though I look like them, I had a different mentality, especially because I was growing up in a Western society, in a society that is completely different from the South Asian one. So I also felt misplaced there. And in the book, I do make a comparison and I talk about the similarities between the two cultures. And at the end, I conclude that it was all about, embracing the two cultures, accepting myself, seeing it as a strength, and taking the good side of both cultures.
that's amazing. That's really incredible. I think that's an important message that most people need to hear, right? Regardless of their situation. But what drove you to write this book? Was it just you recognized your experience was something that you wanted to share? Or were you just writing and thought, hey, this would be a great thing to write?
So here's the thing. I always wanted to write a book. I think it's everyone's wish
Hmm.
is to write a book, and it was mine too, but I like to make my wish concrete.
Hmm.
And what happened is I didn't think it was going to happen at that moment. Like I wrote my book in 2022, and I didn't think it was going to happen like in 2022. Like I thought, yeah, sometime along the line, I'm gonna write a book. But then what happened is I was invited to different podcasts, and they were always asking me about my story about me being a third culture kid, and that's how I saw that, oh, this could be a good topic for a book. And since it's sort of like a memoir, I was like, this is an easy way. Like this is an easy topic for me. It's just easy to talk about yourself. So that's how I got the idea, and I was like, okay, I want to have something written somewhere, and so I wrote it. When I wrote it, my main goal was just to get a message out there and to actually go and tell people I am a self-published author. It was my own self-accomplishment. It wasn't for any other purpose, I would say. It was just for that.
Yeah. I mean, I went through a similar route. I definitely decided to be an indie author from the beginning. I just looked at traditional publishing and thought, that's not for me. I'm not interested in it. I'm not interested in the process. I'm happy with the independent process. It may be
That
challenging, but it works for me. So,
That's right. That's right. And I thought the same thing. I was like, yeah, maybe one day we'll find a publisher who want to publish my book. But it's very challenging to find a publisher. And I spoke with a friend who also so published a book, and he was like, oh, look, this is very easy. You don't even need a publisher. You can just do it yourself. And so he recommended me a book called How to Write a Book in 30 Days. I read that book that
okay.
basically explains how to write, and literally my writing process was really 30 days. And then I found a freelancer on Fiverr who helped me with the editing, formatting, title, first page, last page, how to do those things. And then after, let's say, two additional weeks after that, it was just so published on Amazon.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool. It's a very quick turnaround. Do you anticipate doing the same thing, a process of writing 30 days, publishing quickly?
And I don't think I want to do 30 days this time. I want to do it longer, and I want to write a bigger book. But I would probably I would just go ahead and publish it myself. I don't like to wait on other people. I don't want to go through the hassle of finding a publisher. I think that if you have a good book, it will sell anyway. And I think my main goal is just to be able to say, I'm a self-published author, like not many people can say that.
Hmm. Yeah. I love the creative control. Yeah, that's something. Being able to control your timelines, the content you want to publish, you want to write. Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of people who don't mind either conforming to traditional publishers' preferences or they're more patient than me. I'm not very patient. I, you
Yeah,
know, I thought to myself I could write more books in the time that I'd be waiting for one book to be published traditionally. So I'm just gonna do that.
yeah, exactly. And like you said, like you have to follow a timeline if you're doing it with a publisher. I think there is a lot of complication, I would say, when you do it through a publisher. I think if you're just self-publishing it, I think it's much easier. Of course, you have to do a lot of the work, especially when it comes to marketing and promoting the book, because I think that yes, it's easy to write, but I think it's harder to promote it. That's the
Mhm.
hardest part, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, this comes back to the lifelong learning thing, right? There's a lot of learning that comes from self-publishing. Like I'm constantly learning something. I've been doing it for 5 years now, and there's always something new, some new endeavor that I have to try and learn. And I think that's exciting, right? It helps me be a learner.
That's it. I agree with you, and I think even with self-publishing, like one thing I noticed is that I had no clue that I had to do, let's say, a lot of marketing, but I learned how to do it, and I learned the ways to do it. Like I go to a lot of podcasts and I talk about the book. I do it. That's one way. I volunteer for an organization and they promote my book. Like I feel like I became creative in promoting my book, like finding ways to promote my book. The same thing, I ask people like if you have written my book, just write me a review because I learned that if you write a review, then it helps you with the algorithm. I didn't know any of these things. I had to learn it on
Hmm.
my own. But there's so many things I have learned. So
But yeah, I think that's the exciting thing is enjoying the learning process. Some people may look at that and get overwhelmed and say, I don't like this, right? This is
that's
this is
right.
overwhelming. But I think being a learner and enjoying that learning process is so important. So for you, how did you grow to have a love of learning?
I feel like when it comes to learning, it's very stimulating, like brain
Mm,
wise, like you're just like I feel like there's always a look forward to. Especially because I've studied a lot my whole life and I still do and I enjoy studying. I know for a lot of people studying is like, oh my gosh, she's still studying. But there's fun in it, like you learn different things. I think it makes you curious about stuff. Your brain is stimulated, you're being challenged, and I like the idea. And when you're studying, let's say you have to write exams, and that can be stressful, but I think it helps you to it helps you to tackle challenges, and I think it keeps you really motivated. And yes, I learn through studying, but I learn also through books. I learn through podcasts. I learn by learning languages. I learn through courses. And I think we all should tackle each day as a learning opportunity because it makes your day much more interesting, like they always say you always have something to learn each day. And I noticed that around me. So I think it's a good way to implement this habit in your daily life. Like you'll take your day as a learning opportunity and it will make things so much more interesting.
Well, and it makes it feel less overwhelming. It takes the problem and puts it in your hands, and you tell yourself, I can do this because I can just learn. I can grow, I can develop, and the next time I'm approached by this similar situation, I'll be more prepared because I will have learned from it. And like you said, it does make it more interesting. It makes it less horrible, right? Bad days turn into learning days. It's just like, oh,
Yeah.
it wasn't perfect, but I learned X, Y, and Z, and I get to the end of the day and I'm more prepared for something else the next day. So it's definitely a perspective, but it's not easy to learn.
It is a perspective. It is a
Yeah,
perspective because not everyone sees it that way. Yeah.
definitely not. Did you find that your writing helped you to gain that perspective, or did you have it before you began writing?
No, I think I had it before. I think
Okay.
I always had it. Yeah. Yeah, I always had this perspective of learning even before. I think I'm just very curious in general. And I like to have that curious self within me. I think it's the inner child in me. So, as a child, you're always very curious, you love learning, and I like to have that within me. I like to have
Mm-hmm.
that inner child of me who likes to learn and be curious about things. I don't know. I that's why so many people always ask me like, how are you able to do all of these things and feel motivated? To be honest, I wake up that I look forward to the day. I really
Yeah.
look forward to the day and doing all these great things. So,
Yeah, that's an important perspective. I have similar people, or people ask me similar things of how do you do so much? How do you get so much done? And I'm thinking, I'm like, do I? I don't, I'm working, I'm doing things, but I don't feel like I'm moving at any faster pace than anybody else. I think that's what you said. It comes down to I do the things where I'm learning and growing, and it's the stuff that excites me so that I don't wake up in the morning dreading the day.
hmm
I'm just excited, like you said, to learn from
hmm
whatever the things are good or bad.
yeah.
But it sounds like you're sharing that knowledge, the things you've learned in these guides and in your books. So do you have like plans to write a lot more of these guidebooks, or is it just kind of what comes to mind as you're writing?
That's you said it. It's a second one. As it, like I write as something comes to my mind. I do think that I do have a very entrepreneurial mindset in a way because like if I have an idea, I like to implement it right away. So all these ebooks that I have written, all these guides are things that came up to my mind and I wrote them down and then I was like, okay, let's see if I can like create something. And I always try to analyze my surrounding. Like I try to see, okay, what is it that people need? So I try to, demand and supply, come up with a product or service. That's how I like to work. But yeah, I for now I don't have anything in mind, but as if an idea comes up, I will definitely go ahead and write about it. I definitely want to write a second book. I think after writing the first one, I had so much fun. I was like, okay, I think I'm ready to do this the second time. So I do want to write a second book.
I think that's a good sign, right? That shows that you loved the process. You really learned from it. You gained a perspective on the writing. I don't dread writing at all. And I think it's
hmm
interesting when I hear people talk about, oh, I'm dreading the writing processes or I'm having writer's block, or it's just like, oh, I love writing. Like I love the creative aspect of it. I love not knowing where it's going to go. I think it's so exciting and I just do it every day because I want to. I
Yeah,
just
yeah,
enjoy it. So it sounds
yeah.
like that's kind of where you are as well with your writing.
Yeah, yeah. I think I love the creative side of it. Like you're using all these creative skills and your imagination to come up with something that is just coming out of your head. I think there's a lot of fun to it. And I think especially like you mentioned, like some people are like they're feeling like they're dreading, but writing shouldn't be this way. I think it should be like an effortless
Yeah.
task. Like it should be really effortless because if you feel like you're putting too much effort in it, then maybe this is not the right thing for you.
Yeah, could be. Or possibly the content, the subject matter that you're writing. It could be any number of things, but agreed. I feel like it should be a delightful process.
That's it.
So something's not driving. if it's not a
Yes.
delightful process. So I want to dive a little bit into discovering your identity because it sounds like this is a book that opens up an important insight into any individual taking a step back and kind of discovering who they are based on their life experiences. So is this written like you said, it's a memoir. Is it written in like a nonfiction format, or is it kind of written from a story form memoir perspective?
No, it's written in a nonfiction format. It's just literally me writing. Like I
Very
am
cool.
writing in the first person, and it is literally like a memoir because like for me as I was writing this, I was really thinking about how my life was when I was a kid, and I'm re literally writing all these memories, vivid memories that I have
Wow.
of my childhood, teenagehood, and I shared the book even with I shared it with my high school friends, and they also felt like they went back to high school as they were reading
Oh,
it.
interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Were any of them upset that you mentioned their names or anything? Or
No, I don't mention their names, but even
oh,
if I
okay.
did, I would not upset them because I think that even though I grew up in a very Western society and a lot of my friends were Italian, and even for them it was new to have someone that was different than them, I think they also took this as a learning opportunity, like to learn about someone who's not Italian by blood and to learn about her culture, her tradition, and they really made an effort. So, yeah. I'm actually just grateful.
That's great. I love that. And it may be interesting for them to kind of think, well, this is what Urmi was thinking at the time, or this is the experience she was having when I was seeing it from a different perspective. It's very cool. It's very
Mhm.
enlightening. So have you had a lot of people, family, friends from your past read it, or just a few?
I had a lot of friends who actually have read my book. A lot of my high school friends from Italy, and I also have few friends from UK who also read my book because they saw themselves as well in the book as I speak about them. So yeah, a lot of support from friends, I would say. Yeah.
Very cool. So I guess what are the underlying principles that you outline in discovering your identity that might aid someone who needs to discover their identity?
Um, you know what? Here's the thing, because when before I written my book, of course I always felt like I was like misplaced, and I was not in the right, like I should have not been there. I felt like I was not fitting in, and I started to think that I was the only one who was feeling that. I used to think that there are not many people like me, and then when I moved to Canada, I started to realize there are a lot more people like me. And when I started to have, like, let's say my Instagram account, I started to follow certain pages for third culture kids. And that's how I realized that, okay, I'm not alone in this journey. I feel like there are other people feeling the same struggles. And that's how I realized that, there is a community out there of people who feel the same way, where they feel like, okay, I'm not fitting in. It's
Mm,
not normal that I'm feeling this way. And my message is really to tell the world that you're not alone in this journey. There are a lot more people like you, but it's also about finding the right people who can really understand you. Because I think that, especially because I felt like I was one of a kind when I was growing up, I feel like I was not being understood.
mm,
But by finding a community and by learning to accept myself, I started to see this more like a strength, the fact that not only I have, my Italian side, not only I have the Bengali side, but I have a fusion of two, and I can only bring that.
mhm.
So I started to see this more like a strength rather than a weakness. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's an amazing way to look at it. And it's true, right? There's everyone's personal experience wherever they are, where they came from. Your experience is yours and it's not anybody else's. And because of that, you can bring that unique perspective to any
Yeah.
situation. And I think people kind of forget that. It seems like the world today is good at trying to put people into boxes. Right? You're this kind of person, you're this kind of person, you're this kind of person. But it's more than that, right? Like there's personalities and experiences are so flourishing and unique and different that we need to not forget that. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think sometimes we do. We get so ingrained with society and the way you should be or want to be or what other people think you should be that it's hard to remember what you actually
Yeah.
are. Like you said, discovering your identity.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
I really think that it's I think that yes, my book it's like it applies to someone who has multiple cultures, but I think finding your identity is something that applies to everyone, like learning to discover yourself. And I don't think we do enough work for that. I
Mm.
think, like you said, a lot of the time society puts us in a box, we accept the box, but
It's true.
sometimes you realize that you're probably not made for that box.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fascinating realization. But did you find that it was cathartic, really relaxing or satisfying to write this book, or was it difficult? Was it almost, I don't know, nerve-wracking?
No, it was no, it was for me it was satisfying and it was easy. It was easy because it felt like I was journaling. That's how it felt. Instead of writing
Right.
like on a paper, I was writing on Google Doc. So for me, it was really like a healing process, very therapeutic.
Were you ever concerned that you would become too personal in your writing, or is that not something that you're worried about?
Yeah, I was. I was very concerned. As I was reading it, I was like, how much do I want to share?
Mm,
How much do I want people to know? How is it gonna, affect someone if they read it? So I try to be respectful, and I try to be like I put out there what I want people to know, not everything for sure.
hmm. Yeah, that's a delicate balance, right, between being authentic and real, but also not oversharing.
That's right. That's right.
All
Exactly.
the
Yes.
information. Yes, 'cause some people tend to be a little bit too loose-lipped on in their books and social media, and sometimes I wonder, did you really mean to share that?
I
But
I agree with you.
but yeah, so in terms of the actual like process around formatting your book and getting you mentioned you worked with someone on Fiverr, is that what you said?
Yeah, it's a website Fever.
Oh,
It's
nice.
like a platform where you have basically a lot of freelancers. You have freelancers doing pretty much anything that you want, and then you can see like their profile, you can see the reviews, you can see like how much they charge for their services, what services they offer, and you can basically reach out to one of them, and they will tell you like what they do, what they cannot do, and how much they charge. So I basically found someone on Fiverr after doing a couple of research. Yeah.
Very cool. Did you find that working with that person was easy? Were they pretty good at what they did? They got your book formatted and set up properly pretty well.
Yeah, they did it well, I would say, especially because I was like, it's like when you buy a product, when you buy a product from Amazon, let's say, or anywhere, you're always reading the reviews. So I was reading the reviews properly, and I was also asking a lot of questions to this person before getting my work, before giving her my work, because I found like some people that were able to do one thing and not the other, and I was like, no, I need to find someone who can do everything and who's willing to, do everything and like of a good quality. Like I don't want to pay someone and he or she does only one part of something.
Yeah, definitely don't want to segment things all over the place. It just gets logistically crazy. Do you
It's
think
it's a
there's ever a point where you do those things yourself, or are you hoping to always be able to work with contractors, freelancers?
no, 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 no. I don't
Not
think
for
I'm
you.
at that level now of like editing and formatting. No, 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 no.
No,
No,
it's busy. I remember my first time formatting a book. I always pay an editor. I mean I do my own self edits, but I need someone else to bring their
that's it.
perspective and their knowledge and help me with that. But I remember having these files and having to figure out how to format them, and I had some headaches. I had some hair pulling going on. 'Cause it's like, this isn't working. I figured it out,
Yeah.
and now it's pretty easy because I've done it 9, 10 times. But yeah, it's a
Yeah,
learning thing.
editing is painful. I mean, kudos to whoever wants to learn editing a book, but honestly, it's already hard enough when you have to edit a YouTube video.
Yes.
I I don't want to think about editing a book. No, I don't think I'm there. I
No,
don't I don't
I
even know if I will reach that point.
And if you don't, that's okay. Like
That's right. That's right.
that's fine. Everyone has their preferences. I think I've discovered the power of outsourcing on certain
Mm-hmm.
things that are your weakness.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard lots of people say that you will be benefited more from building on your strengths than trying to sink time into slowly improving on your weaknesses. And it's okay to pay someone or to
It,
contract out when someone is better at something than you.
Yeah,
So,
it's about, maximizing your time, your
yep.
resources, and great leaders delegate. So I think you did a
Yeah.
great job.
There you go. Yeah, great leaders delegate. I love that. I think that's awesome. It can be hard though sometimes to lose some of that control, particularly when you are kind of controlling like myself. It's like I want to do everything, but I recognize my limits, and that's where
Yeah,
editing is. I also don't like editing, just between you and me. I don't know if you like it or I don't.
I don't. I don't. It's painful. It's painful. I have to edit my YouTube
Oh,
interviews. Like I have a YouTube channel. Painful, but I do it. I do it.
you do it and it
Yeah,
gets done, and it's part of that learning, kind of trying to find the
that's
joy in
right.
things. But
That's
yeah.
right. I'm not a pro. I wish I was better at it, but I think for the work that I'm doing, the basic kind of editing is enough for now. I don't wanna overdo. So I'm using my time wisely to edit just to make it professional, but I don't wanna go and overdo it. It's not my full-time job.
Yeah, you don't want it to become your full-time job either.
No,
So, yeah,
exactly.
I get that. So, I guess as you consider your creative works and your creative career, I guess do you anticipate that you'll get back into memoir, or are you hoping to break into like fiction, fantasy, any of those realms? Are you hoping to kind of stay
No.
within the business kind of guide realm?
I would say more memoir. I don't have any interest in writing fiction. I love reading fiction. I love reading fiction, but I think I want to stick to writing memoir. It's much easier, and I think I have things to share that people can relate to. So
Yeah, share your story.
exactly.
For sure. I love that. And there's plenty of content because lives are long and lots of things happen. So,
That's right. That's right.
sh- sure. Did you just draw from your memory completely, or do you have records that you've kept for yourself that you're
Nothing.
nothing? Wow.
Nothing. Nothing. And I wish I had a box where you keep all your, there are some people who have like a memory box where they put
Hmm.
like things from their childhood. I don't have any of this. And it goes back to the fact that we were always moving from one place to another. And so I always found myself like starting from the scratch. So
Hmm.
I don't have any of that. I just really had to think from my memories. I really had to write based on what I remembered. So
Interesting. Did you find yourself being surprised by what things you could remember? Like, oh, I had forgotten about that, but it came up as you were writing.
no, no, because there are certain things that are very vivid in my memory. So
Mm.
I like they just came to me really easily. For other things, I just don't remember them, and I don't think I want to remember them because I would not have an answer, I think.
Uh-huh. Yeah, but I mean that worked for you. You were able to get it down, and you've got this beautiful story of your life that helps other
Yeah,
people. And there's probably more. There's more to it. So take advantage of your experience
that's right.
and share it. But if you had a piece of advice for authors who are new, who haven't started writing, or maybe they've started writing and don't know how to continue, what would you say to them?
I would say, okay, this is because writing can be overwhelming if you're doing it for the first time. But I would say to always be disciplined with your time
Hmm.
and to really allocate maybe even 30 minutes is enough to start to write down something. You don't have to have a chapter over. It could be just really couple of lines. And I would say if the goal is really to get started and not feel overwhelmed that you have to write this within a certain time frame. I think at the end, a good book, if it takes a lot of time, it means that it's going to be a great book. So really just start small. 30 minutes is enough. You can do an hour, but to block off that time and to really sit down and do it.
Yeah, I love that. Take it in small pieces and one session at a time, right?
That's
If you
right.
look at the whole book as a whole, then yeah, I can see how it would be overwhelming. It would feel like this giant wall that you have to climb over that might look
Yes.
impossible. But
Yeah.
when it's just small hurdles, every 30 minutes daily or whatever you're able to get to. I love that. I think that's a great way to slice it and look at it.
Yeah.
So, is there anything that you wish you had done differently from the beginning, or maybe not?
Maybe not,
Great.
but I'm definitely gonna tackle the next one a bit differently. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, in that instead of writing something for 30 days, I do want to take longer time to write. Yes.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, you definitely mentioned that. Yeah, it's great. I love to hear people where they're like, "Well, I don't regret anything, right? There's nothing that I disliked about it. I am going to do things differently based on my learnings." I think that's amazing. That's what
Mm-hmm.
learning's about.
Yes.
So,
Yes, exactly.
it's about learning and doing it differently next time and growing into it. But do you
Yeah.
have advice for someone who doesn't make time for learning. Maybe they find themselves too busy or they don't find it important. What would you say to those people?
Here's the thing. I think learning can be done in many ways.
Mm,
It can be done through reading books. It could be done by listening to podcasts. It could be done by watching, a certain YouTube channel. It could be done through a course. But here's the thing. I think you have to find what's right for you based on your
mhm.
busy schedule. So basically, let's say someone who's like always busy and doesn't have time to sit down.
Just kidding.
Podcast is a good way to learn.
Yeah.
You can be walking and listening. You can be walking your dog and listening to something. That's one way. Maybe you're someone who's always on the go and taking public transportation and doesn't have time to do other things. You can sit down and read a book. You have to find a way that you can incorporate that based on your schedule. So there are different ways to do it. Some people use their lunchtime.
Mm,
You can block 10 minutes and do it. Some people can do something, let's say before going to sleep, they
mhm.
write for 10 minutes. It could be that. It could be as simple as 10 minutes. So it's really about incorporating really small habits based on your schedule and based on what's right for you.
Yeah, I love that. I personally like to do things while I brush my teeth. So brush my teeth and read little bits here. I read more than just that, but I think it's something where I love to learn while I'm doing kind of the necessary. I love listening while I'm doing dishes, and we have
There you
animals.
go.
We have a farm, so when I'm out doing the farm chores, I'll listen to things,
Uh-huh.
books and podcasts and other things, and I just really
Yeah.
enjoy it.
There you go.
And that works for me. But well, I've really enjoyed this conversation. There's so much more we could talk about. We are running a little bit short on time. So where can people find more information about you and your books if they want to check them out?
So I have a YouTube channel called Urmi Hossain. My LinkedIn profile is called Urmi Hossain. My book is available on Amazon. It's called Discovering Your Identity, a Rebirth from Interracial Struggle. And if you're searching that book, you will also find attached to it like my ebooks. I have one about public speaking, personal branding, learning Italian. And for anyone who wants to see some of the work that I do, they can just search Women in Leadership Victoria chapters. I do a lot of work in relation to women's empowerment and gender equality.
Very cool. That's awesome. I'll make sure to put links to all of those things in there. I know it's great when people can just find the things that you have easily. So
Yes.
I think that's great. Well, thank you, Urmi. This has been a great conversation.
Thank you.
I hope you found that helpful and really encouraging. I love Urmi's perspective on lifelong learning. I really liked her story. Her book sounds fascinating. Haven't had a chance to pick it up quite yet, but it's definitely on my list because it sounds like an incredible story and learning from her perspective. So, just an update. The next couple weeks, I'm going to be taking off from the podcast, and this is primarily to kind of get my feet back underneath me. My work has kind of ramped up for the past couple months, and trying to rearrange my schedule to make sure I have time for it. I want to make time for it. So that's really what I need to do is just take the next couple of weeks, kind of put pedal to the metal, figure out what plans I need to make to fit everything in and organize everything in the right fashion. So you will see me not for the next 2 weeks, but beginning of March. And please, if you would like me to join me on the podcast, head to the Casual Author, fill out the pitch form, let me know what you're interested in, and I appreciate you listening. Thanks for your support, and I look forward to talking to you next time.